Hey everyone, Miss Wares here. Today we're going to go over accidentals, enharmonics, and the notes on the keyboard. If you played piano before, this should look familiar. If you haven't, don't worry, I'll break it down for you. So everybody take a look at the keyboard that I have on the page for you. There are white and black keys. The black keys up here, they are in groupings of 2 or 3. And the groupings of 2 directly to the left is going to be our C. So that's kind of like one of our landmarks so that we can know what all the other letters are. So we know where our C is. And then from there, when we go to the right on our keyboard, it's going to go up. The sound is going to go up. We're also going to go forwards in the musical alphabet. When we go to the left, that is going to go down in sound. So the notes are going to get lower and we'll have to go backwards in the musical alphabet. So if we find our C, it's going to be to the grouping of 2 of the black keys, the accidentals, and I go up, you'll see that the letters are going to go forward. So we have C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, and it just keeps going on and on and on. And then same thing, starting at the C, going to the left, it goes backwards. C, B, A, G, F, E, D, so on and so forth. So let's go ahead and write down our first definition. So adjacent means the notes that are right next to each other. So anything, the notes that are touching, it can be the 2 white keys, it could be white key touching the black key. And adjacent keys are called half steps. And this is going to be super important. We're going to keep referring back to this as we go through the lesson. So make sure you have this written down. 2 half steps are equaled to 1 whole step. So what does that mean? I'll show you on the keyboard. So the half steps that we have here that are 2 white keys are going to be E and F, because you can see there's no black key, no accidental in between, as well as C and B. So let's go ahead and write those down. The white key half steps that we have are E and F and B and C. But those aren't the only half steps that we have. Those are just the only white key half steps that we have. That means 2 white keys next to each other. All of the other ones have one of these black keys next to them. So, for example, if I wanted to start on A, a half step up from A would be this accidental note right here, because it's directly next to our A. If I wanted to go down a half step, same thing. It'll be this one right here. And that's going to be our A flat. We'll talk about that a little bit here in a second. Let's do another example. So starting on our D, if I want to go up, which is to the right, it's going to be this note right here. And if I want to go down a half step, it's this note right here. Now, we talked about how 2 half steps equal a whole step. So let's do a few examples of what a whole step would look like. Let's say I start on my F and I want to go up a whole step. So it's 2 half steps put together. So 1 half step up would be this note right here. Now I have to go 1 more half step. So it's going to go back to the white key down here. So it's those 2 notes together, F, and then up to the black key, and then up to G, 2 half steps. So F to G is a whole step. Let's do another example. Let's start on our B. This time we're going to go down a whole step. So first things first, half step right here to this black key, and then another half step to the A. So that is going to be 2 half steps together. So B to A is a whole step. Now let's do a tricky one. If I wanted to start on C and I wanted to go down a whole step. Well, if there's no black key in between B and C, we know that these are half steps. So there's your first half step, right? B and C, half step. I got to go down 1 more half step. So it's going to be this black key right here. And I'll just go ahead and give you that note. It's going to be our B flat. So C to B flat is going to be a whole step. So you just have to count 2 half steps in a row, and that's going to be a whole step. All right, let's move on. So right down here, the distance between 2 notes, that is going to be called an interval. So everybody write that down. The smallest interval that we know in Western music is going to be a half step. And we could see that on the keyboard, right? There's nothing else in between those half steps because those are adjacent notes. They're touching each other. Now, these 3 definitions down here are just review. So let's go ahead and write those in. A sharp sign looks like this. is going to raise a note by half a step. So it's going to make it sound higher in pitch. A flat sign looks like a lowercase b, and it's going to lower the note by a half of a step. And so it's going to go down the keyboard to the left, and it's going to sound lower as well. And then down here, to cancel those out, is going to be our natural sign. And remember, that one kind of looks like an L and then a 7, and those are going to cancel out our flats and our sharps. So next thing I want to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to draw out all of those accidentals onto our staff. So everybody draw a big long staff right here, 5 lines, and then go ahead and put your clef here in the beginning. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom. You do it right here so that I can do one for treble clef and one for bass clef. So draw your clef here at the beginning, and then I will do one for each of you so you know what to do. There we go. Make sure it's long because we're going to do all the sharps and all the flats. So here we go. We know that the groupings of 2 and the groupings of 3 on our keyboard, you can see them right here. I have them all written in on that second page. So we're going to start with our F. So right here, treble clef people F, bass clef people right here, put a little sharp sign in front of it. Remember, when you're adding these accidentals on the staff, they have to go in front of that whole note. Next, we're going to have G and then A. Make sure you leave some space so you can put that accidental. I almost didn't. And put the sharp sign. Make sure it's clear whether it's on the line or on the space. Next, we're going to do our C sharp. So right up here. And then B sharp. C sharp is here, B sharp is here. Awesome. Now, make sure your staff is long enough because we're going to do the flats. I didn't quite make mine as long as I should have. Miss Wares. All right, so you can put a little, just put a bar line. That's where we're going to our flats. So over here, we're going to put all of those notes that are in harmonics, which we'll talk about that in just a second, but basically they're going to be the same as those sharps. So here we go. First one we're going to have is G flat. So you're going to put a whole note on G and then a little flat sign right in front of it. Next is going to be A flat. So here we go, bass clef people, G flat, A flat. Next is B flat. And then we have our D flat. Last one is A flat. So here we go, treble clef people, I'll catch up with you just a little bit. All right. And now what we're going to do is we're going to label all those notes underneath. So starting from left to right, this will be the same for both of you guys. So make sure they're lined up with your notes directly underneath. This first one's going to be F sharp. Second one is G sharp. Next is A sharp, B sharp, D, oops, that's not B sharp. Oh my goodness, what am I looking at? C sharp, D sharp. There we go. On this other side, it's going to be G flat, A flat, B flat, D flat, and E flat. So bass clef people, you're writing these exact same letters in the same order underneath your notes. Make sure when you're writing the letters, the sharp sign or flat sign is going to come afterwards, just like this. Alrighty, and once you have that all written in, if you kept it at the top, that's good. If you scroll down, let's go ahead and scroll right back up. So pause the video if you need more time to write all of these in. Everybody else, let's keep on going. So now we're on that second page titled Enharmonics, and we'll talk about what an enharmonic is in just a second. But as you can see, our keyboard, I went ahead and wrote in all of the sharps and flats. So you can see every accidental, every black key, it has 2 letters on there. That's weird. There's a sharp letter and a flat letter. So let's talk about that here in just a second. So accidentals, I've been using this word a lot. Well, let's go ahead and write in what that definition is. So accidentals are sharps, flats, and natural signs. So notes that are not in the key signature. Remember last week we talked about what a key signature is. It's at the front of the staff and it's going to tell you which notes for the entire piece are going to be flat or sharp. So accidentals are notes that are written into the music that are different from the key signature. Next, So this is going to be our accidental rule. So yes, there is a rule for accidentals. And this one's really long, so I went ahead and wrote it in there. But go ahead and get your highlighter. There is a very important part of this accidental rule. So accidentals carry through a full measure. So highlight that part. Unless the note is tied across the bar line or unless it is changed by another accidental. So accidental rule means that if in the beginning of the measure you have a B that has a natural sign, but the key signature has B flat, that means for the rest of this measure, unless there's a new accidental, any B's are going to be natural. When you get to the bar line, it starts it over and says, go back to the key signature. So if there's a B in the next measure, it would be flat. All right, and then our last definition down here is going to be enharmonic tones. And an enharmonic tone is two notes which are fingered the same, they sound the same, but they have two different names. So it'll look different on your staff, but it'll sound exactly the same, and you're gonna push down the same buttons or hit the same key, go to the same position, whatever it is that you do for your instrument. It's gonna be the same position, sound the same, looks different. So a couple examples of that right up here on our keyboard. As I said before, the accidentals, the black keys, they have two notes on there. So those are obviously some of our enharmonics. So we have F sharp, G flat. So remember our sharp sign goes up a half step. So if we start at our F and I want to go up a half step, it'll take us to F sharp. And that's how you're going to refer to it. But if we start on our G and I say, what is a half step down from G? You're going to say G flat. So it kind of just depends on the context, or it depends on the key signature of your music, whether or not you're going to say sharp or flat. Let's do another example. So right here, we're going to have our A sharp and our B flat. Those are enharmonic tones. If I were to press that button, or press the key on the piano, it would sound exactly the same. But on my music, it would either say B flat or A sharp, and I would just know it would be that key. Now, here's a tricky one that they don't have written on here, but they are still enharmonics. So right here, I have my C. And you could see this in your music. It's pretty rare, but it could happen. And I want to go down a half step. And I want to say, what is C? Well, most of us would just say, well, it's B. But it could also be referred to as C flat. So go ahead and write that in, right underneath that keyboard, C flat. And then same thing going up. This could be B sharp. And then same thing with our two white key half steps here. This could be F flat or E sharp. And again, that's super rare. You probably won't see it, but you could. And then down here at the bottom, we're just gonna write a few examples of our enharmonics just so that we get the hang of it. So let's write, so we have F sharp and G flat, right? That's a black key right here written in for us. Next, we'll do C sharp and D flat, F flat and E, right? That's the same thing. That's the one that we just wrote down right here. A couple more. G sharp and A flat. And last one, this is one of our tricky ones, B sharp and C. And obviously there are more examples, but you have that keyboard there for reference, so just use it. If they are on the same key, that means they are enharmonics. So that's a little bit about our accidentals, the notes on the piano, and then lastly, our enharmonics. Please keep these notes. Make sure that you have them saved so that you can refer back to them later, maybe on a test that talks about the notes on the keyboard. I do not expect you to memorize all these different notes unless you're a percussionist, then you need to. That's why I gave you these notes so that you could just go back and double check to see, what was a half step up from F, or what was a whole step down from C. Use these notes and it's gonna help you a lot. Until next time, bye everybody.